Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. So we're going to continue on with my Group 1 car reviews, where I try and get through all 22 before giving my final ranking of all 22 Group 1 cars within GT7. This time around, we're going to go for one of the more futuristic or VGT based Group 1 vehicles. This time starting off with the Alpine VGT from 2017, built to Group 1 specification. Now, there is a few changes over the, more standard or more, non-race versions of the Alpine VGTs. Mainly the fact that it does feature a closed cockpit, a few revised aerodynamics, so things such as that big long rear spoiler, a few changes at the front. So it is a bit of a different model in comparison to the Alpine VGT and the VGT race. Certainly much more aggressive in terms of its styling. In terms of the price point, it's a standard 1 million credit affair, 594 brake horsepower, a PP of 878.31. Now, in terms of the Alpine VGT vehicles, I know these things have their fans. There's a lot of people that really do love these vehicles, but I'm not one of them. However, as promised, I will go into these car reviews with a fairly open mind, so I can give them all an equal opportunity to maybe get their point across that they're a worthy car, or maybe just absolutely fall flat on the face. So the Alpine VGT Group 1, what do I think about it? Well, in terms of the styling, I would say this is the best of the bunch in terms of its overall looks, in terms of its overall performance. I much more prefer the kind of Group 1 orientated performance that this car gives out. So this is based on the 2014 Alpine VGT, obviously updated with a few changes. Like I mentioned, it's now got the sort of closed cockpit style, which is sort of off to the right hand side, very reminiscent of the standard design. The rear wings change, it's got a bit more of a aggressive aero look at the front. Just overall, it is the best looking of the bunch, hands down. In terms of the performance, it puts out 594 brake horsepower, which is certainly no slouch. It is obviously a V8 race car. Now, in terms of the drivetrain, that has been moved for the race car, so it's been moved all the way to the rear. With its standard price point of 1 million credits, it's really not too expensive, to be totally honest, and very much in line and kind of on the cheaper side for most of the Group 1 machines. Some of them go in excess of a good few million credits, so this one's more on the kind of lower end of the sort of credits you're going to be putting out to be able to get yourself in a Group 1 machine. So overall, it is better looking, but in terms of that performance, does it provide the best performance of a VGT Group 1? And unfortunately, no, not really. This has always been a Group 1 machine, especially in terms of the VGTs, that I've never really gelled with. It's an okay vehicle. It does perform at a relatively average pace. You know, it's nothing absolutely amazing, but it's not terrible. But there is just one downside to this car that I just can't really put my finger on, and I think it just comes to how this thing sort of pulls around its weight. It feels relatively heavy in comparison to a lot of the sort of Group 1 machines. You know, it is 950 kilograms, so it is, you know, it does have a few extra kilograms in there, but it feels like a lot more than that. I've always thought that the weight of this car just feels relatively off in comparison to a lot of other vehicles. So in terms of just outright performance, it just feels a little bit iffy for me, and it's a car that for me personally, I've never been able to completely gel with. So, you know, in terms of the performance, it is there, but it's nothing mind-blowing or special. However, these cars are renowned for being able to be built rather quite well in terms of credit grinding builds, and you know, that's no different for the Group 1. Whilst it is a bit more limited in terms of what you can do, obviously because it is spec built, it can grind credits if you really want it to. However, again, I feel like there's a bunch of other cars that can do better than the Alpine VGT Group 1. So with this obviously being kind of the third subcategory within a category, obviously kicking off the VGT Group 1 reviews, how does it perform in comparison to the likes of the LMP1 more modern machinery and obviously the more historic Group C machinery? It sits in this weird awkward middle section. So in terms of the acceleration, it's nowhere near as fast as the LMP1 machines, and in terms of the top speed, it is still quite a bit down on the Group C machines. However, it is faster overall than an LMP1 machine, and this seems to be the way that the majority of these VGT Group 1s go. There is a few exceptions that you'll kind of see down the line, but I'd definitely say in terms of overall performance, this one's fairly bang average. Now, I know this design has its lovers, but for me personally, it's just far too over the top, especially just in terms of its overall styling and then transferring that look into a sort of Group 1 VGT machine. It just feels too out there. I actually prefer the looks of the Tomahawk and stuff like that make more sense to be turned into a Group 1 over the Alpine. Whilst okay, it's fairly cool, you've kind of got it off to the side with a closed cockpit, you've got a more aggressive looking front end, the rear wing's kind of been changed up a little bit. Obviously one of them doesn't have the wing, one of them does. Yeah, I'd just say overall it's really not my cup of tea. I know a lot of people really do like the more futuristic styling, but I honestly don't think that the styling of it necessarily transfers over to make a good looking Group 1 car, whereas something like the Tomahawk feels a little bit more actually in line with a Group 1 style, with the sort of looks that takes on for its Group 1 version in comparison to something like this, the Alpine VGT Group 1. However, to give credit where credit is due, I certainly feel like in terms of the Alpine VGT styling itself, it is very reminiscent of the likes of the Renault and Alpine cars in game. You know, you can certainly tell what this is. You've got that striking blue and sort of French colours that go on the Alpine vehicles with a very Alpine Renault look at the front. So yeah, I mean, in terms of styling, it's okay and you can sort of tell what it is. It's just really not something to sort of my personal taste. Now, in terms of the performance over the lap, it did a 6-minute 11.589. Overall, that's really not too good. It actually puts it below a Group 2 machinery, which is the RS5. It did have a few kind of slippy, offy moments where it definitely hurt the overall performance, so I do think it is definitely faster than that car. However, I do still think it is way off the TS030, which, if you remember from a few days prior, I genuinely wasn't that much of a fan of that car either, although it is a fantastic beginner's car. So for me, in terms of the kickstart and the VGT subcategory within the category of Group 1, it's really not high hopes so far. However, it can only get better from here. So let me know what you think of this car down below. Whilst it certainly isn't something that appeals to me, and I certainly wanted to kind of get this one out the way and done with, yeah, I am interested to hear your thoughts. I know over the years of kind of doing YouTube and doing money guards and stuff, a lot of people really wanted me to kind of do the Alpine VGTs. Now, for me, whilst okay, the more normal versions can be built to a great spec, the Group 1 is not only limited, but still retains some of the more, I guess, less personal tastes in terms of the styling. So I am genuinely interested to see what the overall opinion is on VGTs that definitely look a lot more kind of speed racer than actual, you know, kind of real true to life race car. So yeah, let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.